How's it going, folks? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me today for today's Monday agenda. Before I get into today's video, thank you for everyone who has subscribed to the channel so far, but about 80% of you who are watching the videos are not subscribed. So if you do like the videos, if you watch often, just hit the subscribe button. It helps the channel grow and it helps me get a few more views on the videos. Here is what is coming up on today's Monday agenda. So as you can imagine, the mood after a 1-0 defeat to Ross County on Sunday night was not the best, but the issue with me is not with the result. The issue with me is that I sat down and took time out of my day to watch that absolute filth. It was one of the worst games of football I've ever watched in my life, and I can't think of the last time that I enjoyed watching Celtic play football. And at the minute, until the end of the season, I don't really care about results. The league's over. Celtic are not going to crawl back. They can't crawl back. Rangers are 7 points away from clinching the title. All I want to do is enjoy watching Celtic play football, and at the minute that is not possible because they are playing dirt football worthy of a team in the position that they are at the minute. They're not entertaining to watch. They don't attack well, they don't defend well, they don't pass the ball well, they don't move it quickly, they're not all that good in possession, and they're not good if you press them. So they are terrible to watch at the minute, and all I want to do is enjoy Celtic playing football, and that is not possible at the minute. So the result to me is actually secondary. The performance is what's important to me at the minute, and we're not getting that at all. It was horrendous to watch, and I don't think anybody enjoyed it, and I don't think I'm being overly critical here. If you actually sat down and enjoyed that game, and thought Celtic played well like Neil Lennon did, then I don't know what games of football you're watching, but please let me know in the comments below, because I don't know anybody who would have sat down and enjoyed that game last night. It was absolutely disgustingly bad. Let's start with the starting 11. So Neil Lennon went back to a 4-2-3-1, went with Bain, Kenny, Welsh, Ayer, Greg Taylor, standard enough. McGregor, Brown at the base, Christie, Turnbull, Rogic, Edouard in the attack or whatever. And there was a sort of a back and forth on Twitter about Brown and whether he should be starting or not. I think Brown has been playing well. Before starting off, he has been playing well at the base of the diamond over the last couple of weeks when he was kind of in the team for 3 games in a row there. Now, the issue that I had with Brown is the fact that Neil Lennon has reverted to 4-2-3-1, even though that's a formation that Celtic went on their worst run of form in December with. And this shackles McGregor, first off, to a defensive role that he's not really capable of, and it's not his best role. He's much better as a number 8 who can get forward, box-to-box midfielder. That's McGregor's role. He's not a centre defensive midfielder. Secondly, one of the issues with the diamond, and maybe the logic behind switching to the 4-2-3-1 in this game, was the issue of width, because you don't get that much width with the diamond. You do not get width by playing Turnbull, Rogic and Christie at the top of a 4-2-3-1 either, because Turnbull's a number 8, Rogic's a number 10, and I don't know what the hell Christie is, but he's not a winger and he's not a striker. Best position is probably a number 8 as well, who's giving you a little bit of energy, but not much apart from that. So you're not getting any width from that. John Joe Kenny doesn't get forward properly. Greg Taylor, obviously he got injured in this, but he's not attacking as a fullback either. Either is Laxalt, and we don't have a backup right back for John Joe Kenny, so that's where we're at the minute for that. So there's no logic to play 4-2-3-1 when you know it didn't work in the past, and you know it's not going to work now because you don't have the players to play that formation. So it was always going to go badly with that starting lineup. That starting lineup makes no sense for me, and you're shackling players to positions that you're not getting the best out of them. Turnbull is not a left-sided midfielder. He is a number 8 or a number 10 playing centrally, taking up the pockets. Rogic, he was playing his proper position. Christie, I don't even know what he does anymore. And then Edouard has no support up front by himself. So add that together with Brown, who doesn't have the legs to get around anymore, and McGregor, who's shackled to a defensive midfield position that's not his best, then what do you expect? You're not going to get results with that. Especially if it's that predictable. And especially if teams know, like Ross County, who knew going into that game that Celtic had no width. All they had to do was crowd it, and that was their game one, because with that pitch, you can't move the ball fast enough, you can't get it out wide, and even when you get it out wide, you have nobody in the box to send the ball into. So what is the point? I just don't understand anymore how they have not figured this out by February, that this is not the best way to play football for Celtic. So that is the Ross County game done and dusted. Rangers are now 18 points ahead, 7 points left until they finally put Celtic out of the misery. The worst case scenario is that Rangers actually clinch the title at the Old Firm game in the 21st of March, I think that game is. So that's worst case scenario. Before the game, and this is one thing that I actually wanted to talk about, before the 1-0 defeat, I thought Celtic might actually get a result against Ross County, but then I saw the team, and then I saw the game. Let's talk about before the game. Neil Lennon, before the game. We still have a lot of work to do and a lot of improvements to make, but it is not the unmitigated disaster that everyone makes it out to be. And we want to finish the season as strongly as possible and see where it takes us. So, what is the definition of unmitigated? Let's look it up. So, unmitigated meaning on Cambridge is complete, often describing something bad or unsuccessful that has no good or positive points. So, let's look at Celtic's season. We're in February 22nd. Celtic are 18 points behind Rangers. Rangers will clinch the title with 7 more points. They were knocked out of the League Cup by Ross County. They were knocked out of the Champions League by Ferencváros in the qualifying route, I should say. They were bottom of the Europa League group. All their best players are probably going to be leaving at the end of the season with no real outlook of who's going to be replacing them. There were 3 loanees playing last night who aren't going to be at the club next year. There's further loanees on the bench who also aren't going to be at the club next year. They had a player who broke regulations and caused 3 of their games to be postponed at the start of the year. And they flew to Dubai in the height of the pandemic only to be, say, slapped on the wrist by the Scottish government and almost caused the season to be cancelled. I'm struggling to think of any positive points for Celtic season. There are none. Because even the positive points go out the window. When you think of Jeremy Frimpong, he was terrible this year, but positive points would have been that we had a young, dynamic right back that maybe if you look at this team, it's got the guts of players who, if coached properly and you get a new manager in, there are some positives because, you know, look at the long-term plan. But there doesn't seem to be a long-term plan. And all the good players like Christopher Julian, Christopher Ayer, Jeremy Frimpong is already gone. I'd be surprised if people aren't looking for Callum McGregor on the cheap this year. Scott Brown is out the door because he's if he's not out the door, he may as well be because he can't play 5 games in a row without being too tired to play the next game. Edouard's gone. Who else might be gone? Ryan Christie, will he be gone? I think it's more of a negative if he's actually at the club next year. Tom Rogic is probably gone. David Turnbull is about the only good, positive thing you can take from Celtic season this year. That is the only thing. And if that's not the definition of unmitigated, then Neil Lennon is looking in the wrong dictionary. So let's talk about his reaction after this game, so after the defeat. So he didn't think it was an unmitigated disaster before the game. What did he think of the game afterwards? Here's some of the snippet from his interview with Celtic TV afterwards.
It's a head scratcher tonight for sure. We were totally dominant. We came up here, as I said before the game, we won 5-0. We didn't play nowhere near as well as we did tonight, and we got nothing for it. So it's it's a difficult one to stomach at the minute.
Because you can see Neil Lennon was defiant after the game, thought Celtic should have won it, thought Celtic should have had 3 to 4 goals. Ryan Christie's chance where he skied it over the bar, and Odsonne Edouard's chance where it flew across the 6-yard box was the only chances that I remember Celtic creating. I don't remember them creating all that many more, except for maybe a shot that was saved in the second half. Can't remember who took the shot, but that's not the interview that's important. The interview, I couldn't find the audio for this, but it was the interview with Rob McLean on the BBC that he walked out on essentially at the end. So this is how the interview went. So Rob McLean, does it feel like a rebuild is required at Celtic? Neil Lennon, yes, I would say so, yes. Rob McLean, are you the man to do it? Neil Lennon, I've done it before. Rob McLean, to do the rebuild. Neil Lennon, I don't see why not. Rob McLean, and that has been communicated to you by the club? Is there clarity on your position at the end of the season and beyond? Well, yes, so far I've not been told anything otherwise, so I carry on with my duties as normal. McLean, and you would like the chance to change things. Neil Lennon, yes, I would love the job. I love the club. I've had a lot of success. This has been a difficult season in more ways than one, football and non-football reasons. So yes, I always want to rebuild and go again. So it kind of goes like back and forth between McLean and Neil Lennon about this. And at the end, McLean, they talk about the quadruple treble, the trophies that Neil Lennon has won at the club. And McLean asks him, "Are you ready to rock?" And Lennon says, "Rob, I'm not going to answer any more questions." McLean said, "With the rebuild." Lennon, "I've already answered that," and ends the interview. That's where it gets sort of inaudible. So clearly Neil Lennon is frustrated with this, but I am absolutely bricking it that he's actually being serious here. Does he think he is the man for the rebuild? And secondly, does the club think that he is the man for the rebuild? Did he walk out of the interview because he's frustrated because he knows that it is the end, or did he walk out because he's fed up with being asked that question? That's my key takeaway from that interview. If Neil Lennon is the man for the rebuild at Celtic, then God help us all, because where is the proof that he has the ability to do that besides his initial reign at the club at the very, very start, back when he took over? He did rebuild the club from there. Can he rebuild it again? There is absolutely no proof to say that he can. What Celtic need is a rebuild from the very, very top. The board need to be sorted out. The manager needs to be sorted out. They need a director of football, and the transfer policy needs to be scrapped, because Celtic are a club that are shackled to the point where they have to compete in Europe, so they have to be able to get good young players in and sell them on for a higher price so that they can continue on a sort of conveyor belt. But Celtic don't have a conveyor belt at the minute, because a conveyor belt would imply that when you have players going out the door, you have another player ready to take his position and build on where he left. Celtic don't have that. Prime example is Jeremy Frimpong, left in January. Celtic have a loanee who's going to be leaving at the end of the season to take his place. Kieran Tierney left last season. Celtic have a loanee, and they don't have any other replacement after that except for Greg Taylor. Chris Ryer is leaving the club. Do Celtic have anybody coming through as centre back? No, they don't. And beyond that, Edouard is going to be leaving the club at the end of the season. Ajeti can't even get into the team. Klimala can't get into the team. So are they going to be his replacements? You don't know that. Looking for further back, Virgil van Dijk left. It took a couple of seasons to replace him. You need to have replacements there. And secondly, there are clubs who are doing this and the same transfer policy with the same sort of budget, who are doing it to a much higher standard than Celtic. Club Brugge is a prime example of this. Go look at their transfer policy. Go look at the players that they've sold. Look at the price that they're selling their players. Their league is considered a little bit higher than the Scottish League, but not much. And they are putting forward far bigger profit margins than Celtic are for their players. So transfer policy needs to be worked at. The director of football needs to get in. Neil Lennon needs to get out of the door. And I don't blame Neil Lennon for not leaving his position. I want to make that clear. This is on the board now. Since, I'd say, mid-December, this has been on the board. Why would Neil Lennon leave? Why would he leave his position at the top club in Scotland when he knows this is the end for him? This is it. This is his football career coming to an end, because he's not getting a job after this. The best job he's going to get is going to be League One. He's not getting a top job after this. He might get another Scottish League job. He might get a lower level Scottish League job, but he is not getting a top job after this. So why would he step aside? This one is on the board because the board have failed to take action when it was badly needed. I have a video that I might play at the end of this where I talk about, in November, how this was like a plane crash ready to happen. All the passengers could see it. Neil Lennon was the pilot. He was heading straight for the building, and nothing was being done about it, because people who were older than the ones complaining about it were saying the 90s were worth. This is as bad as the 90s, whether you like to believe it or not, because Celtic are heading for a crisis worse than the 90s, and nobody is doing anything to fix it. And that is why we need Neil Lennon to leave. And it is up to the board to force him out now. It's not up to Neil Lennon to step aside. It's up to the board to get rid of him and start the rebuild without him, and start the rebuild in the club, because I am worried for the future of the club if nothing is done for now. That is the Monday agenda. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have anything that you want me to cover, leave a comment below, and again, subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy the videos. I'm Endicall. Thanks for watching. If you're on a plane and it's heading towards a building, and the pilot and everyone on the plane can see it heading towards the building, but the pilot is Neil Lennon, for example, and he's just leading this plane into the building, and there's a couple of people, all the younger people on the plane are like, God, we should probably do something about this. The pilot is driving us straight towards that building. But then a certain person from an older generation is saying, no, he might turn it around. Don't worry. Like we grew up when planes flew into buildings all the time. So we just let the pilot continue flying the plane towards this building. That is what is happening with Celtic at the minute. So it's falling to pieces, and we're just watching Neil Lennon try and dig himself out of this hole, and it's just not going to happen.
So sack him.
It's not going to happen.
Sack him. Is that what you're saying? Let's be very clear. Young Celtic fans want Neil Lennon sacked. You're the leader of Young Fine Gael, aka whatever the Celtic version of that is. You want them sacked.
Well, I want Neil Lennon to step down. That's what I want to happen. But that's not going to happen. It's his job. He is in charge of Celtic. I do think he believes he can turn this ship around, turn the plane around, to use the same analogy. But he's not the man that's going to do it.